So thank you for joining today. This is part of our series called Translation or Tech in Translation, I guess we want to call it today. And I'm lucky enough that I'm surrounded by many smart people that work with our customers to really help them enable technology. And today we're talking with Michael Adamson, who have been in partnership now with about 5 years. Mike, can you introduce yourself as sort of your role and what you've been doing with myself and with our customers the last couple of years?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So my role in Laminar is one that's varied and challenging, which is great. Day to day, I run the business as General Manager of Operations, but also I'm out there talking to clients and providing real-world solutions and interpreting client requirements to delivering a successful outcome.
Thanks, Mike. So my role is Business Development Manager, and lucky enough that Mike and I have probably been joined at the hips the last 5 years at Laminar, working through customer issues, concerns, and just understanding where they're at in their journey, mainly centered around network and security. And some of the questions we get asked are varied, and it's usually trying to work out where they are on their journey and working through those technology side of things. I guess for you, Mike, when we talk about the impacts of the network to day, what are you finding with customers that is the most insightful for you?
Truly taking the time to understand what the problems are and really taking that time to talk to the end users first and foremost, and from that extrapolating what the user requirements are. We find that a lot of people come at it with a lot of shiny tools and toys first and foremost, and really that's the wrong approach to do it. If you take the time understanding what is the outcome you want to get, therefore you will lead to a better outcome in successful delivery.
Yeah, fantastic. I think we've been fortunate. We've been keeping things pretty simple in a complex world, and I think that's what customers really enjoy about when we get to work with a customer on their design. We get involved in a lot of design conversations around what's next, what are we trying to do and achieve with the company. How do you, when you're deciding across those design elements, what makes it easier? What are you looking for with the customer to help make those decisions?
Yeah, for us to help make those design decisions, really comes about understanding what the highest priority is. There's always one. Most people have 3 or 4 when they come to us, but when we go through the exercise of exploring and discussing what the requirements are, we can usually distill it down to 1 or 2 attributes, and therefore that simplifies our overall design. Keeping in mind that it's not one particular solution or one particular vendor that we may be working with. We're dealing with multiple different vendors, and it's about putting the best solution forward for the best outcome, and knowing that picking on a smaller scope is a lot better outcome than trying to solve all of your problems in one go and doing everything poorly.
Yeah, we talk a lot about those small quick wins, low-hanging fruit, as opposed to the medium, long-term goals as part of an organisation. I think that's helped us out a lot of times in helping them also make decisions on modernising. The rush to look at new technologies, to look at the next shiny light, as you said, is it's always topical. But quite often we help them make decisions as well on when to modernise and when not to modernise, and maybe utilise what they've got. Do you have any opinions on how we go about that sometimes in relation to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. We find that a lot of companies will maintain their equipment beyond what its useful life is, and that's different to what its end of life may be. And useful life means what's its current functionality into its client requirements. From a speed and feed kind of capacity, we find that once it passes about 60% utilisation, whatever that may be, it needs to be had, or starting the discussion as to what is really the next steps for it. We find that once equipment passes that 70 to 80% sustainable utilisation, that you're going to start running into challenges with the equipment. And that's usually because you don't have enough surge capacity for when there's high demand. And ultimately that leads to a bad user experience. So if you can plan forward what your requirements are, but also have an active monitoring solutions going through, whether that's people, process, technology, then you can forecast where your demand is going to be and how that's going to translate. It's also enabling technology within the business. Technology is not an inhibitor, but it needs to be thought of as a holistic solution.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's always the network, right? We get called into many customers, especially recent, in the last few years, with a lot of changes in their business and organisations, but haven't kept up to date with network compliance and regulatory issues. AI is driving some of that as well, so it's interesting. Where are you seeing a lot of the bottlenecks in your conversation with customers for the network? Like, is there any traditionally, we've seen the same thing over and over again, or is it just a mixture of different, depends on design or business changes?
It's generally a mix. We find that as the business has changed, grown, contracted, changed priorities, then therefore we'll call it the network, has not kept up or evolved with it. And that's just purely because there's usually a capital outlay or there's financing involved behind it, and you want to get a return on investment on your old investments. However, knowing that businesses are a lot more agile these days, and how can we facilitate businesses to be flexible and agile in the future and not locking yourself into a set design, and maintaining that flexibility in the future.
Yeah, it's staggering the amount of change we've seen even in the last 5 years. I've been at Laminar in the networking space. What we used to do as opposed to what we do now, and what we'll do in probably 2 years' time will be the same different, but the technology is enabling us to do so much more, and sometimes with so much less, but the expectation is very high.
Absolutely so. AI has created a buzz. It's definitely an excitement in the industry, but we need to understand what it can do and what it can't do. There's a lot of changes happening in the industry. What was new and a premium product 6 months ago is now a standard offering within a lot of products. So it's really understanding, taking a considered approach and working out what your priorities are first and foremost, knowing that there is going to be change in the future.
Yeah, it's with all those changes in technology, we work with some of the largest vendors globally around networks. How do you keep up with engineering in relation to the new trends and changes and what's coming in that space? Because customers are expecting us to, as a specialist organisation, they come with some, I guess, expectations that we understand the technology. As I said, it's changed a lot. How do you actually incorporate your day-to-day routine to keep updated with the new technologies?
That is the constant challenge, and it's one that I do love a lot within the IT industry, is that constant change. For me, it's participating in industry groups, giving talks, conversing with different peers throughout my network, and also challenging myself to learn new technologies. Obviously, AI has been the buzz within the last probably 2 years now, since the mid-2020s, but understanding all the pieces that make it all happen, and that, okay, it's a certain technology now, it will mature and simplify in the future, but also understanding the risks that come along with it. So you only do that by having a play at home. I've got my own home lab, so I can build things up and go through. A lot of people these days will have a cloud-based lab. It achieves the same outcome. But it's really about getting in there and having a read and interacting with your different peer groups out there. You can't sit in isolation and just read a book and expect a knowledge outcome these days. You really need to be ingrained in the wider audience out there.
Yeah, we get a lot of support, I guess, from the vendors as well, because they get some inside runnings and what's coming up. And I think what we're seeing too is that licensing models are changing and incorporating a lot more than they used to, and that's ever changing, right? So I think that's an exciting part of the industry at the moment. With user experiences, I think we talk a lot about the expectations on networks these days, and it's changed a lot. I think in the last 5 years, but definitely the last few years. How does that impact the user experience if the network is optimized or is not efficiently running?
Dramatically. The biggest thing we find is the network, in inverted commas, was created in a certain aspect, and mainly that's around the data that you're trying to connect with or converse with. Is located in a certain geographic location, being on a laptop, in a server room, in a person's office, or in a data center or a cloud. Now, as the business shifted, particularly recently with COVID, there was a massive shift in the way that we all operate and do work, namely work from home. And that fundamentally upended a lot of businesses' investment in IT and how we access that. So that user experience then suffered in return as IT teams grappled with, well, what is the expectation of us now, and how do our users expect to be able to access data from anywhere? Now that produces a whole bunch of other problems that you have to work through, so your risk matrices, so forth, but also working with the broader business to understand that, hey, these are the expectations now, that we all want to work 2 days from home or thereabouts, or is it going to be a hyper secure lockdown environment? So it's working through and providing that flexibility, but it's not a singular of IT, it's working in collaboration through the business.
The boundaries of networks is definitely challenged, isn't it? Like you look at, what we, office to office and other things, it's certainly changed. And, some of the conversations we're having now around global issues and having that information available but secure. Obviously, the new technologies coming through enables that. But it's definitely a good challenge for companies these days to enable that to happen and securely. So, Mike, do you have any final words in relation to, I guess, the last 5 years I've worked with? I've really enjoyed what you bring to the table. I think customers do too, in relation to some of the skill, knowledge that you have, and maturity around that. Do you have any final words in relation to what you've experienced in the last few years with networks?
Final words are probably, change is constant, especially within the IT world. The digitization of many platforms that happened through the 2000s, the internet, the always-on connected, that's going to continue. The AI now brings in a 24/7 capability to do a lot of tasks. There is going to be a lot of disruption to industry, but it's also going to create a lot of opportunities as well. I cast an eye back to the first calculator that was created, and that was going to be the death of maths, and nobody could possibly trust it. Likewise, the phone systems, what we know and use, there used to be operators sitting in a back room connecting you with analog cables. Those industries have changed, evolved, and will continue to evolve. AI is the next great challenge facing the industry, but great challenges come with great opportunity. So how that plays out in the next couple of years is going to be really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it.
No, that's fantastic. Well, thanks, Mike. Appreciate your insights today. I'm sure we'll get some more off you in the coming weeks. And thank you again for your time.
All right, thanks a lot.